Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. Today we have the Friday FARcast. That's right. The Friday FARcast. Broadcasting to you live from Rome, Italy. Roberto Morosini here at the controls. No, it's not. It's Robert Phoenix. You know, it's been really weird. I've been encountering my birth name. Look, most of you, if you don't know, Phoenix, it's a name. It came to me in the summer of 1996 as I was traveling around the country and wound up in Austin, Texas in 1996. Much different place back then, by the way. Very different. It was nice. Cozy. Austin was cozy. Now, not so cozy. Now it is claustrophobic. From cozy to claustrophobic in 20 years. Wow, what a transformation. Anyway, I was here and I was touring the country and I was doing tarot readings around the country. And that was a lot of fun. I got to see the country and got to go to some interesting places and met a lot of interesting people. And I went to the Olympics and I read tarot at the Olympics, and it was a good time. I had a van, I had a dog. If you've never done anything like that, I highly recommend it. I mean, look, maybe you just save up your money and you just drive. I didn't have the money. I had to work along the way. But the tarot is an interesting introduction to people. I met a lot of people. A lot of very interesting, friendly, kind people. And a lot of good tarot readings, too. So that was in 1996. I came to Austin to do one of these psychic fairs. And the person who got me in asked me what was the name of my business. I needed a name for the business because I needed to put it on their brochure. And I said, well, I'm a Scorpio rising. I said, how about Phoenix Rising? Phoenix Rising Tarot. I thought that was a pretty good moniker. It's okay. So I go there and I start to do these readings. And it was a very powerful time, to be honest with you. It was a powerful time in my life. I had some interesting aspects going on. I had Uranus, Neptune in Aquarius, trining my moon Mercury. So there was a lot of really interesting psychic phenomena happening at that time. It was good. It was a good ride. I had Pluto in the first house, conjunct my ascendant in Sagittarius, not in Scorpio. So there was some potent energy. You got the Pluto, Uranus, Neptune sextile going on. I rode that wave. It was a good wave. Anyway, so I got here, and I might have been within the first 10 readings. I do a reading for this guy, and he says, I knew a Bob Phoenix in Arizona. I said, really? Bob Phoenix from Phoenix, Arizona? Yeah, that's right. So that's interesting. Maybe I'll change my name to Bob Phoenix or Robert Phoenix. And that's how it all kind of started, because I don't know about you, but my last name never really felt like my last name. Has anybody ever had that issue? It didn't feel like my last name. But I've had some interesting experiences around my birth name, which happens to be Morris. I don't have any problem revealing that. There's nothing secret. You can look me up if you want and get all kinds of info if you need to. Whatever, it's fine. I don't give a shit. Anyway, so I took the Phoenix moniker and kind of ran with it, and it became a writing. I did some writing, did a lot of music journalism, so it became my nom de plume, as they say, and that's what I wrote under. And then, of course, I continued to do a lot of the tarot stuff back then, roughly from like 94 to about 2000. I was doing a ton of tarot. It was a big part of my life. I had clients that would call me from all over the country for readings. They'd send me checks. That was really cool. That was back in the pre-PayPal days, and it was all based on trust. It's like I would do a reading and then somebody would send me a check or a money order, and that's the way it was. It was great. It was totally great. Totally great. I lived off the grid for 10 years in the 90s. 10 years. Those were good times. Anyway, wild times, but good times. So, you gotta get down. But I've had these periods, like when I just was coming out of my Saturn return, right around 30, I kept encountering variations of my birth name. Like over this one stretch during the summer, it was really insane what was happening and what was popping up. It's very strange. Street names, park names, people I'd meet. It was really just a very unusual time of synchronicity with my name. And so when I went back to Florida recently, that started to kick in again. This is the birth name. This is not the Phoenix name. And it started with these two, this Christian minister named Robert Morris. So I decided to watch him. I found him on YouTube. Let me check. It was on cable TV. Scrolling through. It's like his Sunday show, Sunday sermon. Let's check this guy out. And then apparently there's another minister named John Morris. And then this whole kind of John Morris thing started to. I've been seeing this name now, John Morris, show up constantly. We were on a street called John Morris in Fort Myers, and so my last name and particularly this John Morris name has been popping up all over the place. Very, very unusual. I have no idea what it means. I could ascribe some meaning to it, I suppose, but it's just a notice. Anyway, that's how the name occurred. If you were ever curious, wanted to know about that. Played a little bit of different opening music today because people have been complaining about hot second chakra. They think it's disturbing. I've heard it. I've heard it has an unusual effect on cats. I don't know why. And from more than one person, there's an unusual cat effect. Cataleptic. That's right. So today, we're going to talk about some stuff that I've been fermenting, for lack of a better term. Fermenting. It all started, what I'm about to talk or share with you, on Saturday. And I'm writing about this. I have a post up on my website, so you're going to get kind of the oral version of the post. And it all started on Saturday when I was in Sanibel Island. And I woke up really early. I woke up at 5 in the morning. And I walked outside and I saw Venus rising. If you've never seen Venus rising, like on a kind of a magical summer morning, boy, it's a sight to see. It's this wonderful bright morning star, and watching it rise before the sun, and seeing these amazing clouds billow off the coast in this kind of liminal blue sky. It was incredible. So I came back later that day and started to watch TV at the place we're staying at, and I went to Turner Classic Movies because I don't get TCM anymore because I ditched cable, so I've got my own version of TCM. It's called RCM, and I go out and I find classic movies or classic TV shows because I'm mining the past. I'm looking at what's been created and written versus what's out there now, because I find what's been created and written previously is a lot more interesting in many ways. So I went to Turner Classic, and let me tell you a story about Turner Classic before we talk about the movie that I saw and what it sprung in my head. Is when I did have Turner Classic Movies, I noticed, and it's like this is where the crazy tinfoil conspiracy nutter kind of label can be just stuck to you, right? Like, hello, my name is Tinfoil Hat Man. I could watch Turner Classic Movies at times, and I could see over the course of a weekend, and of course they have thematically driven weekends with movies. That's part of what they do. But that said, sometimes those themes have deeper subtext associated with them. And I'll give you an example. So one weekend, this is about 2 years ago, one weekend I was watching with some degree of fascination a Saturday night at Turner Classic Movies. And the movies, I wouldn't necessarily call them black exploitation films, but there was definitely kind of an Afrocentric theme, and the Afrocentric theme trended towards films that had some level of justice, social or otherwise, involved with the movies. And I thought, well, this is interesting. And one of the films that they showed was a film called Zulu Dawn. Zulu Dawn. And it's Zulu Dawn, I think it's like the late 60s or early 70s. And it's about British troops in South Africa in 1869, and they're delivering an ultimatum to the Zulus to basically, clear out, and it's a bad move because the Zulus who were fractured come together because there's triangulation. Now the two groups who were kind of warring with each other now have a common enemy, the British, and they combine forces, and it becomes an overwhelming slaughter of the British in South Africa. Didn't stop the British ultimately from continuing to go to South Africa, but so you watch this movie, and basically you're seeing like this really intense response from an indigenous culture against a colonialist government, and it is overwhelming. Overwhelming. And it's really funny because I was looking at the Wikipedia description of the movie. And the movie's got a lot of pretty famous actors. Peter O'Toole, Burt Lancaster. Remember that name, Burt Lancaster, because he'll come up as we get into this today. And who else is in there? Bob Hoskins. Anyway, Peter O'Toole and Burt Lancaster are the big players in this movie. So the Wikipedia description of the film basically says that in spite of the budget and the production values and the stars associated with the movie, it did not do well at the box office. Go figure. I mean, think about that. Well, I mean, what were these people thinking? We're going to make an outstanding movie about the slaughter of the British people and the outright condemnation of colonialism at the hands of seemingly millions of Zulu warriors overrunning a small battalion of British troops. By Lord, I think it will be a smashing success. I believe that the people of England and the people from around the world will rally to this movie to watch this. Are you kidding me? There's no way in 1970, you're going to line up and have people eating popcorn. Yeah, get those bastards. Now, if they wanted to do a remake of Zulu Dawn, now it would be very effective And I think they could make a lot of money because it's a very different social climate. Somebody out there with vision, deep pockets, could remake Zulu Dawn. Perhaps this could be a Spike Lee film, a Spike Lee joint. Look, I like Spike Lee's version of Malcolm X. I thought it was brilliant. I think it's an amazing movie, to be honest with you. So I'm not certainly not denigrating Spike's ability to make a movie, but I think it could be a huge hit. Let's just put it that way. So I watched this and I said to myself, well, why are these movies showing up on TCM? And it must have been about a week later that the Black Lives Matter stuff started to blow up. And it might have been around the Michael Brown thing. I'm not quite, but it was big. I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Here we have this programming, and the programming is kind of like a precursor to what's happening shortly thereafter in so-called reality. Okay? That kind of like, it's like, it's one of those moments where you take your fingers and your thumb, the beard. Yes, interesting. So I kind of put that away and said to myself, well, maybe there's a link. Maybe there's some predictive programming going on with Turner Classic Movie. And then you get into Ted Turner, who, that's his baby, right? And all of a sudden, it doesn't seem so far-fetched. Did you know that Ted Turner is the largest private citizen donor to the United Nations? Did you know that? He's donated close to $1 billion to the UN. Close to $1 billion. That's a lot of money. He's also one of the largest landholders in the United States. He owns massive amounts of land in places like Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming. Huge land. Of course, he's the founder of CNN. Fake news CNN. And it's rumored that he is the guy who threw down for the Georgia Guidestones. Of course, Ted Turner lives in Atlanta. So you begin to add all that up. You go, wow, this is kind of interesting. Maybe Ted Turner is kind of involved here at some level. That he's using Turner Classic Movie as some form of platform for programming. Jane Fonda had become a born-again Christian, and once she did, she divorced Ted Turner because I think that she realized what he was up to. It's funny how Jane Fonda became a born-again Christian. Blows my mind. Do you remember them back in the 90s watching the Atlanta Braves? When the Atlanta Braves were really popular. There they were in the stands together, the two of them watching the game. I remember one time they were watching the game and Ted Turner was asleep. He'd fallen asleep at the game. Oh, isn't that cute? Isn't that cute? Anyway. So because Ted Turner is a deeply enmeshed globalist, let's put it that way, at the very least, he's a major globalist player. And it could go a lot deeper than that in terms of his affiliations. So why wouldn't he use his platforms to advance an agenda? Or to be involved in this sort of occult processing and projection, which is what the predictive program is. It's like, we're telling you it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and if you don't see it, it's not our fault. It's a way of vindicating and validating their position. So Saturday, I was watching a movie I'd never seen before, and I've seen a lot of movies. And the movie was 7 Days in May. And it's about a military coup. You can go back and you can look, you can go back to the Turner logs, you can see it, TCM logs. It was playing on Saturday. Now, they were playing with numbers on Saturday because after 7 Days of May, they had 12 O'Clock High, which is another war movie. So 7 Days of May is about a coup that is being spearheaded by Burt Lancaster, whom we already just mentioned as an actor in the movie Zulu Dawn. So in 7 Days of May, the president is played by Frederick March, who's one of my favorite actors of all time. I love Frederick March. Great actor. So he plays the president. And Burt Lancaster plays this rogue general who believes that the president is incompetent, that he's weak, that he cannot stand up to the threat of the Russians, who at that time were the Soviets. So in this movie, just outside of El Paso, Burt Lancaster builds a secret base where he's bringing soldiers in and he's uniting branches of the military. It's not just the Army, but there's naval officers involved and Air Force. This is a well-planned, well-thought-out strategic coup. And they have this secret base outside of El Paso. And Burt Lancaster plays this amazing, hawkish general. And it's fascinating to watch. It's really fascinating. And I thought to myself, why is Turner Classic, and by the way, the movie is shot, it's an exemplary, it's shot in an exemplary fashion. The light, it's black and white, and there's just the lighting, the shadows, the contrast. It's a really good film. Anyway, I thought to myself, why is TCM showing this? Why are we seeing this now? And then I began to think, well, maybe we're going to witness a military coup. And at that time, and I'll be honest with you, at that time I thought perhaps it would be Trump that would be staging a military coup. Now, you go back to Saturday, and Anthony Scaramucci was still employed, even though he hadn't started, by the Trump administration. And John Kelly was being moved into the chief of staff position. And as soon as that happened, he fired Scaramucci. I'm like, well, this is interesting. This is really, really interesting. What's going on here? And then I began to clock this McMaster, General McMaster, who is a total piece of work. I mean, this guy, he's like the. By the way, all these guys are bald. McMaster's bald, Kelly's bald, Mattis is bald. I think that's part of their problem, is that they don't have any hair. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not to say that all bald guys are closet fascists. I don't necessarily think that, but there's something about the tendrils of the hair and this connection to the feminine in some ways. It's like that story about the Native Americans who, when they went into the army and they got their hair cut, they lost all of their ability to navigate and be trackers. They just lost it all because they got haircuts. These sensors, these tendrils that extend out from our cranium, are psychic vines, so to speak. So it's the fiber optics of the etheric realm. So they don't have any. So they're operating off of kind of pure, rational masculine, because they don't have any hair. I know it sounds crazy. They don't have any hair. If they had hair, there'd be less of an issue. Trump's got hair. I don't know if it's real or not. Who knows? But Trump's got hair. They don't have it. McMaster looks like Lex Luthor, by the way, if you take a close look at him. So I've been following this. And so now McMaster fired this guy, Ezra Cohen Watnick, who was part of the Steve Bannon, Trump, Michael Flynn, sort of nationalist insider group inside the White House. He fired him. Watnick Cohen, go on. And that was a McMaster fire. And Kelly supports McMaster. And it's pretty clear that McMaster is a globalist. He came in, the talking points to Trump were, you're not going to mention Islam, Muslim, and radical in the same sentence. We're not doing that anymore. McMaster has also allowed Susan Rice to keep her security clearance. Here's a woman who ordered the FISA spying on Trump at the Trump Tower. It was Susan Rice. And she gets to keep her clearance. This is insanity. This is total insanity. So now what's happening is that you can see that these generals inside the White House are starting to form a military coalition that is not in support of Trump and nationalism. Now, this is interesting because I rarely watch Alex Jones. I mean, maybe I watch 15 minutes every few days or so. Yesterday I watched, and he basically was talking about the same thing. Now, and he mentioned 7 days in May, and I was like, wow, okay, I just saw that on Saturday, so it's triggering these thoughts. Now remember, I thought it was Trump who might lead the military coup, but in the days that followed, once Scaramucci got fired, and it was Kelly who fired him, by the way, they're basically now confining Trump. They are essentially isolating him. They're taking away the people on the inside. The only person he's got left on the inside is Steve Bannon, and whatever influence that Jared can bring, which is bizarre anyway. Steve Bannon he is really the sole survivor. He's the sole survivor. And Bannon and McMaster were clashing the other day, and Mattis had to intervene. He had to get in between the two of them. And it's pretty clear that McMaster is a globalist. And he wants war. Mattis wants war. Kelly may not want war, but he'll go along with his generals. And this is where Trump has some issues. Because Trump loves the military. Trump loves the police. He loves them because they represent order. If you look at Trump's chart, what does he have on the ascendant? He has Mars. Mars and Leo. It's a glorification, deification, Leo, of Mars-like attributes and Mars-like aspects and Mars-like positions, i.e. the military and police. That's Mars. And he's got it in Leo. And in some ways, by associating with the military and by associating with the police, Trump identifies with them and he gets power from that. He sees himself as a person of power by associating with these powerful military and police figures. Remember, Trump went to a military academy when he was a kid. So this is imprinted upon him. Now, he says it saved his life because, could you imagine? I bet you Donald Trump was a shit, just a total shit as a kid. And some people may say, well, he's a total shit now. I have my theory about Trump. And my theory is that I think he's compromised. I talked about this on yesterday's show and those business dealings with Felix Sater and the Russians and Kazakhstan. I believe he's compromised because of that. I don't believe that the Russians interfered with the election. I don't buy it for one moment. That's not what's at issue. What's at issue is what he did, say, 10 years ago. That's at issue. Now, one could make a case that everybody else has done stuff like that, and that is true. That is true. I would say not everybody, but people at Hillary Clinton, for instance, deep ties to Russia and Putin and Uranium One, which we've talked about. And they're not alone. Remember, we got into this yesterday. When the Soviet Union fell, it was a gold rush. How fast could you get there, and how much could you extract from that moment in time, that period of chaos? So I think Trump had a moment, a Saul Paul on the road to Damascus moment. That's what I think. And he said, I've got to take charge here. I've got to throw myself into the election, and he got elected. The election was not thrown. A lot of people say, well, we got Hillary, we got Trump. Well, Hillary to this day is bitter. If she was playing some kind of a role, do you think she'd be bitter? She'd move on and, she'd run for mayor of New York or whatever. Got her marching orders. She was supposed to win this election. And if she had faced, say, Ted Cruz, she would have beat Ted Cruz. She would have beaten Ted Cruz. If she'd faced John Kasich, she would have beaten John Kasich. If she'd faced Jeb Bush, I think she would have beaten Jeb Bush because he's a drip. He's just a total drip. But Trump went in and he picked these guys off one by one by one by one by one. So it was amazing to watch. And they weren't just clay pigeons just sitting there waiting to be knocked down. You think Jeb Bush enjoyed that? You think the Bush family enjoyed that? What do you how much do you think the Bush family is involved in this coup? Plenty. So Trump had a moment, and he's like, okay, I'm going to make America great again. He's got these planets of Cancer, which are theoretically connected to the United States and the proletariat and the Cancerian connection to growing and nurturing and family and nostalgia and all that stuff. Right? He's got that in his chart. So he wins. And I'll never forget that night. For as long as I live, I'll never forget election night. It was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Just watching this thing unfold and just watching people's minds getting blown. Absolutely getting blown. And they kept, any other candidate, they're like announcing them winning at like 8 o'clock at night. Man, they held this off for as long as they could. They finally announced it like 2:30 in the morning, East Coast time, 1:30 Central, and 11:30 West Coast time. You remember this time last year, boy, we were in the thick of it with the run up to the election. I believe at this point, it was Clinton versus Trump, if I'm not mistaken. They had gotten to those. Like I think Trump had won the Republican nomination just a year ago. How fast it's gone by, and it seems like such a long time ago. Anyway, so Trump winds up winning. Mind blowing. Hillary doesn't show up. You got John Podesta up there talking to people, telling them to go home. She doesn't show up till like 1 o'clock the next day. Rumors were she had about 3 or 4 bottles of wine and some pills and went absolutely berserk. That's not the sign of a woman or a person who said, hey, look, we got this election. It's going to go like this. No. If she was playing a script, it wouldn't have been that visceral, and she wouldn't have come out and held on to this with such venom for such a long period. She hasn't let go. That's that Scorpio rising in her chart. Anyway, And all of a sudden, there's chaos. And they knew that Trump was going to win at some point, or at least they were hedging their bets, because everything that the Democratic Party and Obama and the COG, the continuity of government people, they basically built as many backdoors, whether it was through the placement of judges, whether it was through the placement of staff, whether it was through the placement of microphones, bugs, whether it was through the placement of something inside of a computer, whatever. They had as many backdoors lined up as possible, because when that transition happened, they needed as much information as possible to leak it, to torpedo, and the whole plan has been to make Trump appear weak and make Trump appear to be unable to get anything done, to make him look feeble. Now, there are higher levels of the game going on here, which I'll talk about. But that's the plan. And this eclipse coming up, I believe, has to do with this coup. It's not just that Trump has a heart attack because Pluto's on his ascendant and Leo rules the heart. No, there's something more. There's something deeper here going on. And if these people are allowed to pull this off, I am telling you right now, we will be living in a fascist state to the degree that the people who are proclaiming that Trump is fascist and that we're living in a fascist country right now, they won't know what hit them. They'll know what true fascism is. Because when they come out and they try their Black Lives Matter BS, or they try whatever they're going to do, there's going to be boots on their necks. And that goes for anybody, by the way. That goes for anybody. If you are on the right, if you're an alt-right person, a paleo-conservative, a libertarian, if you're an anarchist, and you get out there and say, I'm not into this, I don't agree, boot to the neck. It will be across the board in uniform. And this is what will happen in a military coup. This is what will happen. So get ready, because this eclipse will give us an idea as to where this country and quite possibly the world is going. I'm laying it out right here today, 12:49 on the 4th of August. You're hearing that. Now, if you look at the degree of the sun during the eclipse, which is going to be at 28 degrees Leo, which means that the true node will be right around 28 degrees Leo. South node will be opposite the eclipse, which is Aquarius. Keep that in mind for just one moment. If you look at Trump's ascendant, it's happening right on his ascendant. If you look at Trump's Mars, it's going to be just a degree or two off of his Mars. Close enough. Mars is the military, right? So, and he has his Mars, astrocartographically speaking, running right through Washington, D.C. In New York, it's just off the ascendant. You go a little bit west, and there it is. It's right on the ascendant. If you look at the major players in this drama that we're talking about here, Mike Pence has his Pluto conjunct Donald Trump's ascendant. So the eclipse will be conjunct Mike Pence's Pluto. I think he's got, it's either Pluto 29 Leo or Pluto 0 Virgo. I forget which one, but it's right there on Trump's ascendant. And that's where the eclipse is going to be, right on Mike Pence's Pluto. And Mike Pence would become the de facto president. And I would not be surprised if one of these military guys winds up becoming vice president. Maybe Mattis. Wouldn't be surprised. McMaster, this is interesting. McMaster has Uranus in Leo at 28 degrees. So McMaster's Uranus is right on Trump's ascendant. That is an absolutely disturbing energy. It's chaotic. It is rebellious. And I guarantee you he doesn't like Trump. I guarantee you. So the eclipse is going to be right on McMaster's Uranus. Oh, what does that mean? Well, it means it could go a couple different ways. It could mean that during that time, his Uranus is going to be activated, which is rebellious, and it will be initiated against Trump and his identity. And then Uranus on Pence's Pluto, which is also on Trump's ascendant or identity, gets activated. And his power switch gets flipped on. And now you've got Pence and you've got McMaster teaming up to basically remove Trump from office. And if you're on the left and you're progressive and you think this is a great idea, you're going to regret this moment in time. Because Mike Pence is a hardcore Zionist. And Mike Pence will waste no time, along with these generals, waging war against Iran, Syria, and North Korea, all simultaneously if they have to. That's Mike Pence's MO. He will do anything his masters tell him to do. Now, here's the other thing with the eclipse around Trump that's kind of unfortunate. It's something we need to talk about. What is Trump? Trump is a old white guy. It's plain and simple. He's an old white guy. He is the guy that Kathy Griffin was ranting and raving about. And whose heads have been on the chopping block for the last few years. It's the old white guy. Trump, if something happened to Trump and there was a coup, that this would be not just the removal of Trump and nationalism and whatever else we have ascribed to his presidency, but it will be the ritual sacrifice of the white male, the older white male. That this will be an occulted event. So it's not just a transference of power, that there is something else at an almost supernatural level. A human sacrifice, a soul sacrifice going on. These are major times we're entering into. And look, if it doesn't happen, fantastic, great. Let's talk about what else could happen. What else could happen is that, look, Steve Bannon is nobody's fool. He's nobody's fool. This guy's smart. He's been around the block a lot of times. He's made a lot of money. You know, something recent just came out with Flynn, who has ties to Bannon's company, Harvard Analytics. This just came out today. They're going to try to get Bannon out next. They're going to try to link Bannon to Flynn, to the Russian stuff, because Bannon is the last pillar inside of the Trump administration that Trump could actually have somebody to talk to. Versus, they took away Trump's cell phone, apparently. They took away his cell phone. Anyway, but if I were Steve Bannon, I'd figure out very quickly how to do a counter coup to the coup. This is where it's at. I mean, I think we are coming to this event horizon in America. And it's happening really quickly. If I were Trump, I would find any way I could to remove McMaster. I'd get him out of there. I would get him out of there. I'd get him out of there as fast as possible. Because astrologically and geopolitically, that guy is a threat. He's a total threat. And I only think you have to get rid of McMaster. I was thinking you get rid of McMaster and Pence. I'd get rid of McMaster like right now. I'd get him out. And then you leave Pence around, because if that pillar or that pinion has been removed, then this, by the way, the rumor has it that the Democrats have been reaching out to these generals to stage this coup. But if you remove McMaster, then you remove a significant piece. And then Pence now is kind of on an island. And then you deal with Pence later. So you don't want to look, and maybe it's too hard at this point, too chaotic. But you got to get, so if there is the potential for staging a counter coup and reclaiming, I think that the power inside the White House has been completely lost because of Congress and the Senate and basically these forces that are colluding against Trump. Trump has got to do something that is drastic, and I mean really drastic. Like he's got to lay McMaster out. He's got to fire him. He's got to let him go, and he can do that. He can certainly do that. Now that would send a shockwave through Washington, D.C., and he'd have to get a real loyalist in as the head of the Security Council. Somebody who's got his back, who supposedly Flynn was supposed to be, and they got him out on purpose. We're at a pivot point here. This is a really important, pivotal point in the history of the United States and the world. It's this presidency and this upcoming eclipse. Now, it could happen and things could be just fine, peachy, dandy, and we may continue this drama and this cycle. But at some point, things are going to have to move. They're going to have to move, the chains on North Korea. They're going to have to move the chains on Iran. And Trump is, again, openly talking aggressively about Iran, which is a bunch of shit. Sorry. It's only because a small country in the Middle East wants this big country to do its fighting and do its bidding. And that's just the way it is. And most people don't understand that. Now, pursuant to all of this, there are things happening on the internet that are aligning with this pro-fascist state. One of the things that's happening is that YouTube is basically YouTube and Facebook are hiring the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, to be their thought police, to come in and to look at videos that are supposedly racist or hateful or bigoted or whatever term you want to use. The ADL now is being given a big club. And what's going to happen on YouTube is that they're going to be using the same kind of social scale that China uses. If you get a lot of affirmative points and brownies, well, you get to have more content and more say, but the only way that you can get those affirmative points is by playing nice and writing and creating content that is sympathetic to the government and the current system. If you are a dissident, guess what's going to happen? Your rating will drop, in which case you're thrown out and you're cast out into a no man's land. And YouTube is going to do this. How is it going to do it? Well, let's say you have a disproportionate amount of likes, or unlikes rather. Say I put this video up and I get my usual 15 likes. By the way, please like my videos. This broadcast, it would be great if I got if I can get triple digits on a broadcast, that would be awesome. Likes. But if you get more unlikes than likes, then guess what's going to happen to your video? All these things kick in. You can't monetize it. It's going to be put. It won't be linked to other videos that are being recommended. So when you watch maybe something by Alex Jones, it might recommend my video, my broadcast. You get too many demerit points, and you lose that. So you lose your monetization, you lose the recommended, and the next thing you know, how are people going to find you? It's going to be difficult. The only way this is going to work moving forward is your own website. And even then, the autonomy will become much more truncated and compressed to the point where it will be very difficult to have an independent thought or an idea. It's happening on Facebook. Google has its own version of it. If you do a search of, let's say you put in a search for, let's see, how about Obama Freemason? You put that search term into Google and you put it into DuckDuckGo, and the results will be drastically different because Google is using algorithms to push up results that are, if they deem to be sort of counter to the content that you're trying to scrape and access, they will do that. DuckDuckGo will not do that. So even Google has the algorithms to produce content that is not necessarily related to your search in the way that you're looking for it. It's smart that way. Facebook has its own thought police, its own process. It'll be very similar. If you have a post that's deemed to be hateful, if you have a post that's deemed to be bigoted, whatever, take it down. And Snopes is part of this process on Facebook. It's like Snopes and the ADL. It's like just a complete, cast of clowns. But you see, this is where this is headed. It's already there in Europe. There are lots of things you can't talk about in Europe. We've talked about that before. So if you have the equivalent of the fascist boot to the neck on the outside, then you're going to have the equivalent in terms of the inside with the internet and your own personal voice, your own personal freedom. This is a big time. This is a really, really big time. Back in October, when people were starting to clamor about what YouTube was going to do, what Facebook was going to do, I kind of took it with a grain of salt. It's like, okay, let's see them do that. Well, they're getting there. It's getting really, really close. And you may not be able to listen to people like me, unless we're completely underground, off the grid, doing pirate radio, like back in the old days. Repeater pirate radio stations. It's kind of cool. But this is what's emerging. And most people don't have a clue. They just don't have a clue. And this upcoming eclipse will give us some insight into what's going on. And, the end result of a coup, well, you may have people dancing in the streets because of what might happen. I guarantee you what happens after that will have them rethinking that in a very big way. And that also means that there are people who are very loyal to Trump, who voted for Trump, who believe in Trump, who believe in America, and who make America. These people will be completely pissed off. They will be pissed off. And they have a lot of guns. And this could actually start something else, some other revolutionary process. Let's all hope and pray that what it really does is it opens up our heart, because that's the nature of Leo. It opens up our heart. It cracks our heart open. And we see the world in all of its beauty and its faded and ragged glory, in all of its abject suffering, in all of its abuse, in all of its potential for compassion and redemption. And in our own lives as well. How often do we get to practice it? And how often does it come up? And when it does come up, how good are we at it? I had this moment the other night. I was hanging out at my favorite place, Jack Allen's. It was quite hot out, and I got there, I think, at around 3:30, and it was around 6:30 or 7 when I was leaving, and in a space of 4 hours, I think, or close to 4 hours, I had 4 frozen margaritas. That's one frozen margarita basically per hour, and I'm 6'3", and I'm about 230 pounds. So it's not like I'm a horse jockey. So anyway, I get up, and I was outside. I decided that I really wanted to go inside, and I wanted to have just a beer. It was nice and cool. I wanted to have a beer. So I go inside, and I want a beer, and they told me I'm cut off. And they can't have a beer. And they gave me some water. I was like, oh, God, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. So I have a little bit of water, and I was like, I took it personally. Look, they're just doing a job, and I wasn't loaded, but they're doing a job, and I get it. But in my head, of course, I'm thinking, fuck those guys. I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna give them a piece of my mind. I'm gonna go back down there. And you work out all these little, I'm a Scorpio rising, right? You work out all these little plans and scenarios in your head. It's like the end of the day, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. The guy's just doing his job. And it's like, hey man, appreciate you doing your job and looking out for me. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. And you move on. We've got to have more moments like that. Because that's where it's at. That is the front lines of consciousness. How we respond to daily life and daily situations. Are we bringing light or are we bringing darkness? Bottom line. So bring the light. That is my advice. Bring the light. And not the secondary light. The real light. The true inner light. That links us up to Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel. That's the light I'm talking about. The Christ light that runs through every single point of consciousness on this planet to the degree that it can. That's the light. All right, boys and girls. Just here for an hour today. I was going to have my friend on, but she's not. Christine was not available today. We'll try and get her on Tuesday, the morning of her, or maybe Monday or Tuesday. She's got a book reading here in Austin for a new book, new novel, Duped. I'll have her on, and we'll talk about it. All right. I didn't mean to upset anybody. Never do. But we have to talk about these things as they rise up to greet us. The event horizon is coming closer and closer. So have a great weekend. If you are with your family and loved ones, please enjoy them. If you're with your lover, your partner, whoever it is, enjoy them. If you're by yourself, he raises his hand. Enjoy that part too. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, broadcast to you live from Austin, Texas. You've been listening to the Friday FARcast. Here's My German Friend by yours truly.
Kind war.